Hello, dear friend. Come sit with me for a while. Imagine this: the sun is just beginning to rise over your garden, casting that soft golden light that makes everything feel more alive. The birds are already busy, the air is cool, and a gentle breeze carries the scent of last night's rain. You're holding a warm cup of tea, hands wrapped around the mug, and the world feels quiet, like it's waiting patiently for you to create something beautiful. Now take a look around your garden, or your porch, or even the little pots by your window. Do you ever feel like something's missing? Not something expensive or grand, just something more you. A little detail, a little story, a little charm that says, "I made this with care." You don't need to go shopping for it. You don't need to buy the latest garden decor or chase after trends. You already have everything you need, maybe in the garage, maybe under the sink, maybe tucked away in a kitchen drawer. A chipped mug, an old ladder, a drawer that's lost its home. These things still hold purpose, still hold beauty. Just like us, a little worn maybe, but full of quiet strength and creativity. Upcycling isn't just a trend, it's a form of storytelling. Every crack, every brush of paint, every planted seed, they become part of a memory, a part of your garden's soul. And it's so much kinder on your wallet too, especially when every dollar matters more than ever. Instead of tossing things away, we're giving them and ourselves another chance to bloom. So today, let's do something simple. Let's look around and imagine not what something was, but what it could be. This video is our little walk together through the garden of possibility, a journey of turning old junk into something joyful, useful, and even a little magical. You don't need youth. You don't need money. All you need is a bit of imagination and a warm heart that still believes in making something lovely. Let's begin. Do you remember saving old jars in the pantry? Maybe from spaghetti sauce pickles or that special jam you loved on toast. We all seem to collect them, thinking they might come in handy one day. Well, dear friend, today is that day. Those simple glass jars can become the most enchanting little lanterns for your garden. And the best part, it's a project that doesn't cost much, doesn't require strength or bending, and brings a warm glow to your evenings. Start by gathering a few jars, any size will do. Even mismatched ones add charm. Wash them gently and soak them in warm water for a bit to remove the labels. Once they're clean and dry, the real fun begins. Now think about how you want them to look. You might paint the outside with soft pastels or go bold with sunflower yellows and sky blues. Some folks like to use sponge brushes for a textured look, while others prefer stencils like little stars, hearts, or leaf patterns. If painting feels too tricky, you can even wrap the jars with lace or old doilies for a soft vintage feel. Once your design is done and dry, it's time to light them up. If you have small LED tea lights, they're a safe and lovely option. Simply drop one inside each jar and screw the lid on loosely or leave it off entirely for a more rustic look. If you prefer a more natural glow, real tea light candles work too, as long as you place the jars somewhere stable and away from anything flammable. Now picture this: your handmade lanterns lining the garden path, resting on the porch railing, or even hanging from low branches with a bit of twine. As the sun dips down, each jar begins to flicker, casting soft light and long shadows like little beacons of peace in your evening sanctuary. These lanterns don't just light up your garden, they light up your heart. Because you made them, because something once forgotten is now part of your home again. They remind us that even the simplest things, even an old pickle jar, can shine with just a bit of attention and care. And isn't that a beautiful thought, that no matter how small or ordinary something seems, there's always a way for it to glow again, just like us. Do you remember that old tire leaning behind the shed, the one too worn to be useful but too heavy to just haul away? Well, today we're going to give it a second life. One full of color, charm, and blooming joy. Tires may not seem like garden treasures at first glance, but with a little love and paint, they can become some of the most eye-catching planters in your yard. Even better, they're sturdy, weatherproof, and ideal for folks who want a garden without bending down too low. You can even stack them up to bring your flowers closer to eye level, no kneeling required. Start by giving the tire a good clean. A bit of dish soap, warm water, and a rag will do the trick. Once it's clean and dry, it's time for color. Outdoor spray paint works beautifully, and you can choose any shade that brings you joy. Cheerful yellow, calming lavender, or maybe a soft mint green. If you're feeling creative, you can use stencils or even hand paint vines, daisies, or little bumblebees dancing along the side. Once the paint is dry, place your tire where you'd like it in the garden, somewhere sunny, somewhere you can admire it from your favorite chair. Then fill the center with good quality potting soil. You've now got a deep circular bed ready for planting. What can you grow? Oh, the possibilities. Bright petunias spilling over the sides, tall marigolds standing proud in the center, or even herbs like rosemary or basil if you're cooking inclined. And if you have more than one tire, stack them. Paint each a different color and plant a different flower in each layer. You've just made yourself a cheerful tiered flower tower, and it didn't cost a dime. If you'd like to take it a step further, line the inside with moss or mulch to help retain moisture and give it a more natural look. Or place small river stones around the base for added elegance. What I love about tire planters is that they turn something heavy and discarded into something joyful and lighthearted. A transformation not just of object, but of spirit. Because that's what we do, isn't it? We take what life gives us, even the worn and forgotten pieces, and we plant something beautiful in the middle of it. Something that grows. Something that gives back. So if you have an old tire lying around, don't throw it away. Paint it, fill it, watch it bloom. It might just become your favorite part of the garden. Some tools work their way into your heart. A rusty shovel that once helped plant a tree. A bent rake that gathered every golden leaf one autumn afternoon. A trowel now chipped that helped you tend your favorite patch of daisies. These tools may no longer serve their old purpose, but that doesn't mean they're done. With a bit of imagination, these worn-out helpers can become something entirely new: garden sculptures that tell stories. Start by gathering a few old tools: shovels, spades, hoes, rakes, even broken garden shears or watering wands. Don't worry if they're rusty or missing parts. In fact, the rust adds character like laugh lines on a well-loved face. The simplest project: turn a rake head just the fan of metal tines upside down and mount it on a fence. It makes a beautiful rustic holder for garden gloves, hats, or even hanging pots. It's practical but also a quiet tribute to its past life. If you're feeling playful, try creating a sculpture. Take an old shovel and plant it vertically in a flower bed. Then screw a metal colander on top for a head, and add 2 bent forks as whimsical arms. Suddenly, you've got a garden scarecrow that makes everyone smile. Want something more elegant? Use an old metal rake as the base and attach flattened spoons to form petals, creating a one-of-a-kind flower that never wilts. Or stack 2 rusted watering cans with a pipe in between and add a little birdhouse on top. You've just made a totem of garden history, part art, part memory, all charm. These projects may take a bit more effort: a screwdriver, maybe a drill, or just some sturdy wire and patience. But you don't need to lift anything heavy or work for hours. Even arranging 2 tools in a cross pattern and tying them with twine can be a gentle, satisfying afternoon project. Place your sculptures in a spot where they'll surprise and delight, maybe tucked between flower beds or leaning against the fence near your favorite sitting nook. They don't need to be perfect. In fact, it's the unevenness, the where the story in each piece that gives them soul. You see, these tools worked hard once, and now even in rest they can still bring joy. Just like us, after decades of effort, we're allowed to sit back and become something beautiful simply by being. So don't throw those old tools away. Let them live on, not in the shed, but out in the sunlight, part of the garden they once helped grow. There's something quietly sturdy about an old wooden pallet. You've probably seen them leaning behind grocery stores, or maybe you've had one tucked in the garage for years after a delivery. They're rough, a little splintery, and often overlooked, but oh, the potential they hold. With just a little care, a humble pallet can become a planter, a bench, even a vertical herb garden, perfect for small porches or anyone who prefers not to kneel in the dirt. And it doesn't take much more than a screwdriver, some paint, and a dash of imagination. Let's start with the simplest transformation: the vertical garden. Stand your pallet upright, propped gently against a wall or fence. If you like, sand it down just a bit to smooth any splinters. Then, using landscape fabric or small wooden slats, you can line the bottom of each horizontal slat to hold in soil. Fill each level with potting mix and tuck in herbs like basil, thyme, or mint. In just a few weeks, you'll have a fragrant green wall growing right in front of you, no bending, no back strain. prefer flowers. Fill the rows with bright petunias, trailing ivy, or even succulents for a more sculptural look. And if you enjoy a pop of color, paint the whole palette first, maybe in lavender coral or even a soft garden green. Add stenciled words like welcome or bloom and your palette becomes part garden, part artwork. Now, let's say you'd like a cozy place to sit with your morning coffee or evening tea. That same palette can become a simple garden bench. Stack 2 palettes one on top of the other for a sturdy base. Add a third palette vertically for a backrest and secure them together with screws or brackets. Finish it off with an old cushion or a row of plush pillows, maybe ones you already have tucked away. Suddenly, you've got a lovely little corner to rest and admire your handiwork. For a more refined look, paint the entire bench with weather-resistant paint or seal it with a clear protective coat. Add a folded throw blanket or small side table made from a leftover crate, and you've got yourself an outdoor reading nook that feels like a secret escape. The beauty of working with palettes is that you don't have to be precise. It's okay if the wood is rough or the slats aren't perfectly straight. In fact, that's part of the charm, a rustic feel that matches the pace of a peaceful garden life. And maybe as you sit on your handmade bench, herbs growing just a few feet away, you'll feel something deeper, the quiet satisfaction of creating comfort from something once discarded. A bench from a shipping pallet, a garden from a wall of wood, and joy from your own 2 hands. Because in this season of life, you deserve a place that holds your presence with care. A place you built not with money, but with memory and imagination. There's something sweetly nostalgic about the sound of a spoon tapping the side of a tin can, like the echo of childhood kitchens or old-fashioned pantries. And believe it or not, those very same tin cans from soup, coffee, or even beans can become little gems in your garden full of charm, color, and personality. If you've got a few cans saved in the recycling bin, don't toss them just yet. With a little paint, some twine, and a sprinkle of imagination, they can become cheerful planters, rustic lanterns, or even whimsical wind chimes. Let's begin with the basics. First, wash out your cans thoroughly and remove the labels. You might want to use a bit of vinegar or lemon juice to get rid of any lingering odors, especially with tomato-based cans. Once they're clean and dry, it's time to get creative. You can paint them any color you like. Soft garden pastels, bold sunflower yellow, even chalkboard paint if you want to label them with plant names later. If your hands aren't steady, don't worry. Sponge brushes and painter's tape can help create simple stripes or borders. Or go freehand and let each can carry its own little personality. Now decide how you want to use them. For planters, simply poke a few drainage holes in the bottom with a hammer and nail or a sturdy screwdriver. Add soil and pop in a few herbs, small flowers, or trailing vines. These little planters are perfect for windowsills, railings, or even hanging from hooks along a fence. For hanging planters, punch 2 holes near the top rim string through some twine or jute rope and tie securely. You can hang them from tree branches, pergolas, or a shepherd's hook in the ground. They look especially charming in clusters like a little floating bouquet of recycled beauty. Now, if you're in the mood for something musical, turn your cans into a wind chime. Use different sizes and hang them at various lengths from a wooden stick, driftwood, or even an old coat hanger. Add some bead shells or buttons between the strings for extra flair. As the breeze passes through, they'll create a soft tinkling sound, like your garden whispering. One more idea. If you place a small LED tea light inside tin cans, become magical lanterns. For this, you can punch decorative holes into the sides using a hammer and nail, think heart stars, or just simple dotted patterns. When lit, the light will shine through in delicate patterns, casting a cozy glow across your garden as night falls. No matter how you choose to use them, tin cans are wonderfully durable, weather-resistant, and practically free. And there's something satisfying about turning a can once meant to be tossed into a lasting piece of garden decor. It reminds us that beauty isn't always about what's new or polished. Sometimes it's about seeing potential where others don't. About taking something overlooked and making it sing again, just like an old memory brought into the light. Have you ever broken a favorite teacup or dropped a plate that held a family meal? It's a small heartbreak, isn't it? Even chipped dishes can feel too sentimental to throw away. But here's a little secret: those broken pieces can come together to create something beautiful, maybe even more beautiful than before. More. Today, we're turning cracked plates, mismatched mugs, and shattered saucers into a stunning mosaic fence, a patchwork of memories, color, and light that transforms an ordinary wall into a garden masterpiece. You don't need to be an artist or a perfectionist. In fact, mosaic art thrives on imperfection. Each jagged edge, each uneven color, it all becomes part of the charm. Start by collecting your broken pieces. Old china, ceramic tiles, chipped bowls, even glass beads or stones will do. If you don't have enough at home, check thrift stores or ask friends. Many folks are happy to part with dishes they no longer use. Next, choose a section of your garden fence wall or even an old wooden board you can lean against a tree or shed. This will be your canvas. To attach your pieces, you can use strong outdoor glue or tile adhesive depending on what you're working with. Apply a little to the back of each shard and press it gently into place. There's no right or wrong pattern. You can create a heart, a flower, a swirl, or simply let it be a random burst of color like a quilt made from dishes. Once everything is dry, you can fill the gaps with grout, the same kind used for bathroom tiles. Spread it carefully between the pieces with a rubber spatula or even a gloved finger, then wipe off the excess with a damp sponge. Let it dry fully before displaying. And just like that, something once broken becomes whole again, not hidden, but celebrated. A mosaic fence doesn't just add color to your garden. It tells a story. Maybe that blue piece came from your grandmother's old serving bowl. Maybe that pink shard was once your favorite morning mug. Now they live on, catching sunlight and smiling at you every time you step outside. If grout feels like too much, don't worry. You can also create a dry mosaic. Simply glue pieces directly onto a wooden board or tray without filling the gaps. Even placing broken pieces in a shallow pot or around stepping stones creates a playful glimmering effect. There's something healing in this kind of work, piecing together fragments into something new, turning accidents into art. And remembering that broken doesn't mean useless, it just means ready for reinvention. So the next time a dish breaks, don't be too quick to sweep it away. It may have one more story to tell on your garden wall, sparkling in the morning sun. Glass bottles, they clink softly in our hands after a celebration or a quiet dinner. Wine bottles, soda bottles, or even olive oil jars, tall, slender, full of light-catching color. Most of the time, they head straight to the recycling bin. But out in the garden, these glass treasures can begin a new life as graceful lanterns or clever plant markers that add both style and purpose. Let's start with something simple, yet enchanting: the garden lantern. Choose bottles in green, blue, or clear glass and soak them to remove any labels. Once clean and dry, you can leave them as they are for a natural look, or paint them with frosted glass spray for a softer glow. For a magical touch, consider swirling paint on the inside or adding small pressed flower decals to the outside using clear sealant. Now, gently slide a string of battery-operated fairy lights into each bottle. Just like that, you've created a glowing garden companion. Arrange a few along your walkway, nestle them between plants, or group them in threes on a small outdoor table. When twilight comes, they'll shimmer like little fireflies in glass, soft, warm, and utterly peaceful. If you prefer hanging lanterns, use sturdy wire or twine to create a loop around the neck of the bottle, making sure it's secure. Hang them from tree branches or hooks for a floating light effect. The weight of the glass makes them stable, and the result is pure backyard magic. But bottles can do more than glow. They can help you organize your garden too as charming plant markers. Here's how: clean the bottles and paint their sides with outdoor safe paint or chalkboard paint. Then write the names of your herbs or flowers with a paint pen or chalk. Basil, thyme, lavender, each plant gets its own little sign. Stick the bottle neck down into the soil near your plant, letting the flat base face up with the name. Not only does this look elegant, but the thick glass also helps protect the marker from rain and fading sunlight. It's especially helpful if you forget what you planted where, which happens to the best of us. Another idea: fill bottles with colored water or dyed sand and place them around the edges of your flower beds. When the sun hits, they become garden jewels, glinting and shimmering among the greenery. Of course, glass is fragile, so place your bottles in spots where they won't be easily knocked over, or partially nest them in the soil for extra stability. There's something soulful about glass, the way it catches light, the way it lasts for years, the way it's both delicate and strong, just like us. And when you take the time to repurpose a bottle to give it a second life as something beautiful, you're also honoring that balance. So next time you finish a bottle of sparkling water or wine, don't toss it. Hold it up to the light, imagine what it might become, and then let your garden be the place where it begins again. Do you have an old wooden ladder tucked away in the shed? Maybe it's a little wobbly now or missing a rung. Maybe it once helped paint a nursery room or reach apples high in a backyard tree. If so, don't throw it away. That ladder still has one more job to do, and this time it won't be for climbing. It will be for displaying beauty. In the garden, a ladder can become a charming vertical shelf, perfect for showcasing potted plants, garden tools, and even little treasures that bring you joy. Start by dusting it off and giving it a gentle cleaning. If the wood feels splintery, a bit of sandpaper will smooth it out. From there, the choice is yours. You can leave it weathered for a rustic look, or paint it with a soft color like sage green, dusty rose, or classic white. A coat of outdoor sealant will help it last through the seasons. Now find a cozy corner of your garden or porch somewhere with a bit of shade and a view. Open the ladder and steady it so that it leans slightly backward. Each rung becomes a shelf, and each shelf becomes a stage for your plants. On the bottom step, place your heavier pots, perhaps filled with trailing ivy or fragrant lavender. On the middle steps, go for bursts of color, marigolds, pansies, or little daisy planters. And up top, maybe a small lantern, a watering can, or even a framed quote that brings a smile. You can also hang lightweight items from the side rails, a tiny shovel, a sun hat, a string of bells, or fairy lights. The ladder becomes more than just a shelf. It becomes a vertical garden vignette, telling your story with every detail. This kind of setup is especially lovely for smaller spaces. If you live in an apartment with a patio or a home with a tiny backyard, a ladder shelf helps you grow upward without taking up precious ground space. And best of all, it brings everything within reach. No bending, kneeling, or crouching required. If you have an extra ladder, you can even lay it horizontally across two short stumps or blocks to make a rustic table or bench. Line the rungs with potted herbs or add a candle or two for evenings outdoors. There's something poetic about this project. A ladder once used to go up now gently holds things up. It no longer has to do the heavy lifting, but instead offers quiet support. Just like so many of us do later in life. We've already climbed. Now we create beauty where we stand. So before you toss out that old step ladder, take another look. With a little imagination and care, it can become the backbone of a beautiful garden nook, one that reminds you every day that usefulness doesn't end with age. It just changes form. There's a kind of quiet romance in an old door. Maybe it once welcomed guests into a home full of laughter. Maybe it stood weathered in the back shed, creaking with every season. And those wooden window frames, they once held views of the world, sunrises, rainstorms, the flutter of curtains on a spring day. When their original purpose is done, many of these pieces are discarded. But for the gentle gardener, they can become stunning statement pieces, elegant, rustic, and filled with charm. Let's begin with an old wooden door. If you have one, even if it's chipped, cracked, or faded, don't throw it out. Instead, turn it upright and anchor it along a fence or at the edge of your garden. You've just created a faux garden gate to nowhere, a whimsical touch that adds structure, character, and the feeling of a secret garden entrance. For an added effect, you can paint the door in a pastel hue or soft neutral sage green, dusty blue, or warm cream. Consider adding a small mailbox, vintage hardware, or even a wreath made from dried flowers. If you have climbing plants like clematis or morning glory, train them to wind their way up the side as if nature itself is reclaiming the door gently and gracefully. Now let's talk about window frames. Even without glass, old frames make lovely garden accents. Hang one on your fence or a shed wall, turning it into an outdoor picture frame for the living beauty behind it leaves sky blossoms. You can attach small terracotta pots to the bottom edge filled with trailing blooms or herbs, turning it into a blooming window box without the house. Another idea, mount a frame vertically with chicken wire stapled to the back and use tiny clothespins to attach dried herb seed packets or photos. Or plant succulents directly in the compartments, turning each pane into a tiny garden room of its own. For those who love a vintage look, lean the window frame against a tree and surround it with mismatched garden chairs, painted pots, and a small bench. Add a few solar lanterns, and suddenly you've created an outdoor sitting nook where the past meets the present in the softest way. Don't worry if the wood is worn or the paint is peeling, that's part of the soul. A bit of clear sealant will help protect the piece from the elements while keeping the patina intact. Upcycling doors and windows reminds us that not every opening leads somewhere. Some simply invite reflection. They offer a view not of what's ahead, but of what's here. The garden, the breeze, the moment, and maybe in a quiet corner of your yard, that old door or window once discarded becomes your favorite spot. A reminder that beauty is often found in things that have stood the test of time. Just like you, there's something deeply comforting about wooden crates. Maybe they remind you of old markets or country stores where apples were stacked high and everything smelled of cinnamon and sunshine. Maybe you used to store tools in one out in the garage or kept favorite books in one under the bed. Today, we're going to bring those crates back to life, not for storage indoors, but for something far more beautiful: garden decor that's as practical as it is peaceful. Old wooden crates are surprisingly versatile, especially in the garden. Their shape and structure make them perfect for both vertical and horizontal projects. And best of all, they don't require any sawing, drilling, or heavy lifting, just a little stacking, painting, and planting. Let's begin with tiered flower beds. Start by finding 2 or 3 crates similar in size, but not necessarily matching. Give them a gentle wipe down and, if needed, sand off any rough edges. You can leave them natural or paint them with weather-resistant outdoor paint: white for a cottage look, dark green for a woodland vibe, or robin's egg blue for a cheerful touch. Now place the first crate directly on the ground in a corner of your patio or garden. Fill it with soil and plant something that will spill outward: petunias, sweet alyssum, or even strawberries. Then place the second crate slightly behind and on top of the first, tilting it just a bit, so it leans against something stable like a wall or trellis. Fill that one with upright plants, perhaps marigolds or lavender. If you have a third crate, place it at the back for even more height. Within minutes, you've created a cascading tiered garden out of what was once simple storage. It's perfect for small yards or porches and brings your flowers right up where you can see and smell them, no bending required. Now let's talk about storage. Garden tools. Gloves, seed packets. All those little things that tend to wander can find a happy home in a crate. Turn one on its side and tuck it under a bench or beside your chair. Place a small flower pot on top for beauty and slip your trowel and hand rake inside when you're done gardening. Add a folded towel or small cushion and it becomes a resting spot and a storage shelf all in one. You can even mount a crate to a fence or wall using L brackets and use it as a floating shelf. Fill it with potted herbs, solar lights, or small keepsakes like that bird figurine your granddaughter gave you or a smooth stone from your last beach walk. Stacked crates also make delightful garden nightstands. Place one next to your favorite outdoor chair, tuck a book or two inside, and top it with a jar lantern or a cool drink. Suddenly, your garden isn't just a place to work, it's a place to be. There's something deeply satisfying about giving new life to something so humble. A crate is just a box until you turn it into a stage for beauty, a home for tools, or a tiered garden of color and scent. And isn't that what upcycling is all about? Not just saving money or being eco-friendly, though those are blessings too, but creating something lovely from something ordinary. A little effort, a little imagination. And suddenly your garden has another corner full of personality and pride. Some things are just too sweet to throw away, like a teacup with a tiny chip on the rim or a lonely saucer whose partner has been gone for years. You may not drink from them anymore, but that doesn't mean they're done bringing joy. In fact, these little heirlooms can find new purpose in your garden as delicate, whimsical mini planters that feel like something from a storybook. If you've ever enjoyed an afternoon tea, you know the comfort in holding a warm cup. There's memory in the weight, the pattern, the feel of the porcelain. So when you gently tuck a little green life into that same cup, it's more than just a plant. It's a living keepsake. Start by gathering any teacups or small mugs you have around the house. They don't have to match. In fact, The more variety, the more charm. If you don't have any on hand, your local thrift store is a treasure trove, shelves lined with forgotten floral china, gold-rimmed cups, and charming little finds, often for less than $1 each. These mini planters are perfect for succulents, tiny herbs, or even pansies and violas, whose sweet faces are just the right scale for a teacup. First, add a small handful of pebbles or stones to the bottom of the cup. This helps with drainage since most teacups don't have holes. Then add a scoop of potting soil and nestle your plant gently inside. If you're worried about overwatering, choose succulents like hens and chicks or echeveria. They don't need much and they look darling in such a small space. A little moss around the base adds softness, and a sprinkle of white gravel on top brings brightness. Now comes the fun part, deciding where to put them. Line a few cups along your porch railing or windowsill. Arrange them on a weathered tray on your outdoor table. Hang a few from a wall shelf with hooks, or nestle them into the crooks of a wooden ladder if you've made one, like we talked about earlier. Teacup planters also make lovely gifts for neighbors, grandkids, or dear friends. You can add a little tag with the plant's name or a sweet message like "Grow with love" or "You make life bloom." Wrapped with twine and a smile, it's a heartfelt gift that costs next to nothing but means everything. And here's a lovely secret: you don't have to stop at cups. Sugar bowls, creamers, even a chipped gravy boat can become unexpected planters. Each one tells its own quiet story and gives you a reason to smile every time you see it. These teacup gardens are gentle, small, and full of soul. They remind us that beauty doesn't have to be big. That purpose can come long after usefulness seems gone. That even a chipped cup, just like a weathered hand or a wrinkled smile, still has so much to give. So pour a little soil, plant a little life, and let your garden, like your heart, be filled with small and beautiful things that once served, and now bloom again. Have you ever looked at an old metal colander and thought, well, this has seen better days? Maybe the handle is loose or the base is dented. But don't be too quick to toss it out, because with just a little love, that humble kitchen tool can become one of the most charming hanging baskets in your garden. In fact, colanders are practically made for this purpose. They already have holes perfect for drainage. They're sturdy, weatherproof, and have just the right depth for planting. And there's something undeniably cheerful about seeing a pasta strainer full of petunias swaying gently in the breeze. To begin, dig through your cupboards or check the bottom shelf in the garage. You might have an old metal or enamel colander waiting for its next chapter. If not, thrift stores often have them for pennies, especially the brightly colored ones that once hung in retro kitchens. Once you've got your colander, give it a good scrub. Remove any loose rust or residue. If it's a plain metal one and you'd like to give it more personality, consider spray painting it with an outdoor safe paint. Sunshine, yellow sky, blue soft coral, whatever color makes you smile. Next, cut 3 equal lengths of chain or thick twine, about 18 to 24 inches each. Attach them evenly around the colander using the existing holes or handle loops. If the colander doesn't have obvious spots for this, a simple drill can make tiny holes near the rim. Gather the chains at the top and connect them with a strong hook or key ring. You now have your hanging basket ready. Line the inside of the colander with coconut coir moss or even a bit of burlap. This helps keep the soil in place and adds a lovely rustic look. Then fill it with rich potting soil and tuck in your plants. What should you plant? Cascading blooms like Lobelia nasturtiums or sweet alyssum work beautifully. You could also do a mix upright marigolds in the center with trailing vines around the edges. Or go practical with herbs, parsley, thyme, and chives spill out delightfully and are always within reach for your cooking. Hang your finished basket from a sturdy branch, a shepherd's hook, or a hook on your porch beam. Water it gently and step back to admire how something so ordinary has become something extraordinary. And maybe that's the real beauty here. A colander was never meant to hold flowers. But now, in this quiet season of your life, you get to decide what things become. You get to choose softness, color, and new life, even for items long retired from their original task. It's a reminder, isn't it? That usefulness isn't fixed. That purpose can be reimagined. And that even the simplest things, like a metal bowl full of holes, still have a role to play in making the world more beautiful. There's something deeply sentimental about an old picture frame. Maybe it once held a family portrait or a faded print that hung in your hallway for years. And while the photo might be gone or the glass long since broken, the frame itself still holds a quiet kind of grace. Instead of letting it sit forgotten in a closet, why not bring it outside and turn it into a living wall garden that breathes new life into your patio fence or shed? This upcycling idea is wonderfully senior-friendly, no digging, no bending, and no lifting of anything heavy. Just a little gentle crafting and a dash of creativity. Start by finding an old frame, large or small. It doesn't matter if the wood is scratched or the corners are worn. In fact, the more aged it looks, the more rustic charm it adds to your garden. Give it a light wipe down to remove dust, and if you'd like, paint it with an outdoor safe color. Soft white mossy green or even a light teal can turn something simple into something eye-catching. Next, decide what kind of wall garden you'd like to make. There are two lovely options: air plant displays or succulent mosaics. For air plants, cut a piece of chicken wire or mesh screen to fit inside the back of the frame. Staple or tack it securely to the inner edge, creating a kind of open grid. Then gently nestle air plants into the openings, twisting them so their base rests in the wire without being pinched. Air plants don't need soil, and they love bright outdoor light, which makes them perfect for vertical displays. Prefer something with a bit more planting? Try a succulent wall frame. You'll need to attach a shallow box behind the frame about 2 to 3 inches deep, lined with plastic or landscape fabric. Fill it with cactus soil and cover the front with a fine mesh. Then cut small openings in the mesh and gently insert your succulent cuttings. Lay the whole frame flat for a couple of weeks so the roots can settle in. Then, when the plants are secure, you can hang it upright on your fence or wall. The result? A living picture full of texture, color, and life. Don't want to plant anything, you can still use the frame as art. Attach small terracotta pots to the bottom edge and fill them with seasonal blooms or herbs. Or hang the empty frame over a section of climbing ivy or flowering vine, turning your plants into the painting within the frame. There's something touching about repurposing a picture frame for the garden. It's a quiet message to yourself that beauty isn't always about holding on to the past. Sometimes it's about framing the present. And in doing so, you remind yourself that even if the photo fades and the glass breaks, there's still so much life left to grow. Have you ever had a favorite chair that just couldn't hold up anymore? Maybe the seat gave way or the back wobbled too much. And yet, you didn't want to throw it out. Something about the shape, the memories, the worn-down arms where your hands used to rest, it felt too special to let go. Well, dear friend, that chair may be finished in the dining room, but it can still have a beautiful second life in your garden. Today, we're turning it into a broken chair planter, a gentle, artful tribute to usefulness rediscovered. This project is perfect for older wooden chairs, especially those with a missing or sagging seat. If you don't have one on hand, thrift shops or yard sales often have them for just a few dollars, too damaged to sit on but full of charm and potential. Start by gently cleaning the chair with a damp cloth. If the paint is chipping, you can leave it for a shabby chic effect or give it a light sanding and fresh coat of outdoor paint, something soft and garden-friendly like sage green buttercream or robin's egg blue. If you want to protect the finish from weather, add a clear sealant once the paint is dry. Now look at the empty seat. This is your planting space. One of the easiest ways to fill it is by using a wire-hanging basket, the kind lined with coconut coir. Simply set it into the hole where the seat used to be. If it's a little loose, secure it with floral wire or a few small nails. Then fill the basket with potting soil and your choice of flowers or herbs. Want something colorful and spilling? Try trailing petunias, sweet potato vine, or cascading lobelia. Prefer something fragrant and useful? Tuck in thyme, oregano, or mint. You can even mix in a few marigolds for cheer and natural pest control. Once planted, set the chair in a special spot beside your front steps under a shady tree or in the corner of a flower bed. It becomes an instant conversation piece, a focal point that feels both elegant and nostalgic. For an extra touch, you can hang a small sign on the chair's backrest, something like "Welcome Grow," or simply your last name painted in script. A few fairy lights or a mason jar lantern hanging from one arm adds gentle glow in the evening. What's lovely about this project is not just how pretty it looks, it's how deeply symbolic it is. A broken chair long retired from its role now brings life and beauty into the world once again. It may not hold weight anymore, but it still holds purpose. It still holds joy. And maybe it reminds us that usefulness doesn't have to look the same as it once did. That even when the seat is gone and the years have worn us smooth, we can still bloom in new places, in new ways, surrounded by light and life. So don't throw that old chair away. Plant something in it. Sit beside it. Let it remind you gently and quietly that nothing is ever truly wasted when love is involved. Do you remember the days when checking the mailbox meant something exciting? A birthday card, a handwritten letter, maybe even a catalog you'd read from cover to cover. That old metal mailbox, now rusted or leaning, may not get much attention anymore. But what if it could bring you joy again, not with paper and stamps, but with greenery and scent? That's right, dear friend, today we're transforming an old mailbox into a charming little herb garden. It's practical, it's whimsical, and it's especially lovely for gardeners who prefer to keep things raised up and easy to reach. Start by finding a mailbox that's past its prime. Maybe you already have one in the garage, or you spot one at a flea market or secondhand shop. It doesn't matter if it's rusty or faded, those marks give it character. Just give it a gentle scrub and a bit of light sanding if there are rough edges. You can leave it as is for a rustic look, or give it a new coat of spray paint, perhaps soft green sunflower yellow or chalky white. Once clean and dry, decide how you want to display it. If it's still attached to a post, you can plant the whole setup right into your garden or a large planter. Or if it's loose, simply mount the mailbox on a fence porch rail or even lean it against the wall on a sturdy shelf. Now comes the fun part, planting. You'll want to open the mailbox door and line the inside with a bit of coconut coir or landscape fabric to help with drainage. Add a few scoops of potting mix, enough to fill it loosely without packing too tight. Then gently tuck in your herbs. Think easy-to-grow varieties like basil, parsley, mint, or oregano. You can fit 2 or 3 small herb plants in one mailbox easily. If you like, let a bit of creeping thyme spill over the edge like a soft green waterfall. Or tuck in a little marigold or nasturtium for a touch of edible color. Once your herbs are in place, water them gently and close the lid part way, leaving it propped open so the plants can breathe and bask in the sun. That lifted flap becomes an awning of sorts, a little garden roof for your leafy treasures. Every time you walk by, you'll get a whiff of something delicious and perhaps a gentle smile from the memory of how that mailbox once served you. Now, instead of bills and paper, it brings you fresh basil for your pasta mint, for your tea, or parsley for your soup. And here's the beautiful part. This project requires almost no bending, no lifting, no fuss. It's small, manageable, and entirely within reach, a sweet reminder that gardening can meet you exactly where you are. The mailbox may no longer deliver the news of the world, but now it delivers something better, the joy of growing, the comfort of scent, and the quiet satisfaction of giving new life to something old. Because sometimes we all just need a little purpose again and a place to grow. Do you have a pair of old boots gathering dust in the corner of your shed? Maybe they once walked through mud puddles with your grandkids or kept your feet dry during spring plantings. Their soles may be worn, the leather cracked, but like many things in life, there's still good use in them yet. Today, we're turning those worn-out boots into garden guardians, whimsical planters with personality, charm, and just enough mischief to make everyone smile. This idea works beautifully with rain boots, work boots, or even ankle boots that have lost their partner. Each one tells a quiet little story, and now they'll become part of the landscape you love. Start by cleaning the boots with a damp cloth. They don't have to be spotless, just free of dirt and debris. If they're leather or canvas, give them a quick brushing. If they're rubber boots, you might want to give them a light sanding so that paint, if you choose to add it, sticks better. If you love a pop of color, this is your moment. Grab a can of spray paint made for outdoor use and give those boots a makeover. Sunshine yellow, garden green, or even polka dots and stripes, there's no wrong answer. Or if you prefer the boots to look rustic and natural, leave them as is. The wear and tear becomes part of the charm. Now grab your drill or a sturdy nail and carefully poke a few small drainage holes into the bottom of each boot. This will help keep your plants happy and healthy. Line the inside with a bit of gravel or pebbles, then add potting soil just like any flower pot. Next, it's time to plant. Choose small annuals or herbs that don't need much depth. Pansies, violas, sweet alyssum, or even compact marigolds work wonderfully. You can also try herbs like chives or thyme, which spill gently over the top like hair from a wild old garden character. Once planted, place your boot planters along a garden path beside your front steps or near a bench. Line up 2 or 3 for a walking effect, almost like your garden has grown a personality of its own. Add a small wooden sign behind them that reads Garden Patrol or Guardians on Duty, and you've got a whimsical vignette that feels alive and loved. There's something special about this kind of project. It reminds us that usefulness doesn't end when something or someone is worn out, that boots that once trudged through dirt can now cradle blossoms, that we too can stand still and beautiful after all our walking is done. And perhaps that's the most comforting thought of all, that what once served in movement can now serve in stillness. Watching, guarding, growing. So if you have an old pair of boots too tired to walk, don't throw them away. Let them stand proudly in your garden, rooted in memory and bursting with new life. Some kitchen tools have a way of lingering long after their prime. A metal strainer with a bent handle or a mesh sieve with a tear too small to fix. They've drained pasta-rinsed berries and sifted flour through decades of dinners and pies. But even when they've done all they can in the kitchen, there's one more purpose they can serve, and it's a gentle, meaningful one, a butterfly bath for your garden. This project is soft, simple, and full of heart. It's less about planting and more about welcoming life, offering rest to some of your garden's most delicate visitors. To begin, find an old metal strainer or sieve. It can be wide and shallow or even deep like a colander. Rinse it off, and if you like, spray paint it a soft color sky blue, lavender, or even a soft gold that catches the morning sun. Now choose where you'd like to place it. You can rest it on a plant stand, a low stool, or even atop a stack of flat stones. If you'd rather hang it, attach 3 strings of twine or light chain evenly spaced around the rim, tie them at the top, and hang your bath from a tree branch or a garden hook. Line the bottom of the strainer with pebbles, glass, marbles, or bits of flat stone, something that butterflies can safely land on without getting wet. Butterflies can't land in deep water like birds can. They need little landing pads where they can rest their wings and sip gently. Next, pour in just enough water to barely cover the bottom, just a thin layer among the stones. You can also dissolve a pinch of sugar or add a splash of overripe fruit juice to make it more inviting. The scent and sparkle will draw not only butterflies, but also bees, ladybugs, and other pollinators. Place your butterfly bath somewhere quiet and partially shaded, perhaps near flowers or herbs that already attract winged visitors. Lavender, dill, and coneflowers are perfect companions. Over time, you'll find that this small gesture brings more than just beauty. It brings life. The soft flutter of wings, the pause of a bee in midday sun, the joy of knowing you've made a tiny sanctuary for creatures that ask for so little. And all of it made from something once destined for the trash. An old kitchen strainer repurposed with kindness now serves as a resting place for the most delicate travelers in your garden. This little bath doesn't just nourish butterflies. It nourishes you too. It reminds us that peace can be offered in the smallest of ways. That even something as humble as a strainer, once filled with food, now filled with water and light, still has gifts to give. So place it gently, fill it carefully. Watch the sunlight dance across its surface, and in doing so, let your heart rest. Knowing you've given something old a new way to serve quietly, beautifully, and full of grace. There's music in the garden if you know where to listen, the rustle of leaves, the hum of bees, the soft creak of a wooden gate. And sometimes, when the breeze picks up just right, you can add your own melody to the mix, one made from memory's metal and gentle sound. Today, we're turning old forks, spoons, and ladles into a one-of-a-kind garden wind chime, something that doesn't just decorate, but sings. If you've got a drawer full of mismatched utensils, the ones that don't match your current set, or have seen better days, don't toss them. They're perfect for this project. Thrift stores are also great places to find vintage silverware for next to nothing. The older and more worn, the better their dings and dents carry stories. Begin by gathering 5 to 7 utensils. You'll also need a base to hang them from, a piece of driftwood, an old slotted spoon, a sturdy wire coat hanger, or even a small colander turned upside down. The key is to use what you already have. Now, using a hammer and nail or drill, create a small hole near the top of each utensil's handle. Be gentle and wear protective gloves if needed. You'll then thread each one with twine fishing line or metal wire tying them securely. Attach each utensil to the base at varying lengths so they don't clank all at once. Hang them close enough that they gently tap one another when the wind moves through, but not so close that they tangle. You want a soft, irregular music like whispers between old friends. Once your wind chime is complete, find a special spot for it in the garden, perhaps near a doorway, above a bench, or from the limb of a favorite tree. Every breeze becomes a tiny concert, each note a reminder of how something ordinary can be transformed. And here's a tender thought: each time you hear those gentle chimes, you're hearing echoes of your own care and creativity. That spoon may have stirred soup on cold evenings. That fork may have served cake at birthdays. And now, in their second life, they continue to offer something not nourishment for the body, but a soft, soulful gift for the spirit. You can make your wind chime even more personal. Add a bell from an old collar. String glass beads or buttons between the utensils. Tie a ribbon from a loved one's old blouse. Each piece becomes a note in a symphony of memory, a soundscape that's completely yours. This is one of those projects that doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Just your hands, your heart, and the willingness to let old things speak again. Because sometimes beauty isn't silent. Sometimes it chimes softly in the wind, reminding you that nothing is wasted and every life, every item still has a song to sing. There's music in the garden if you know where to listen, the rustle of leaves, the hum of bees, the soft creak of a wooden gate. And sometimes when the breeze picks up just right, you can add your own melody to the mix, one made from memory's metal and gentle sound. Today we're turning old forks, spoons, and ladles into a one-of-a-kind garden wind chime, something that doesn't just decorate but sings. If you've got a drawer full of mismatched utensils, the ones that don't match your current set or have seen better days, don't toss them. They're perfect for this project. Thrift stores are also great places to find vintage silverware for next to nothing. The older and more worn, the better their dings and dents carry stories. Begin by gathering 5 to 7 utensils. You'll also need a base to hang them from, a piece of driftwood, an old slotted spoon, a sturdy wire coat hanger, or even a small colander turned upside down. The key is to use what you already have. Now, using a hammer and nail or drill, create a small hole near the top of each utensil's handle. Be gentle and wear protective gloves if needed. You'll then thread each one with twine fishing line or metal wire, tying them securely. Attach each utensil to the base at varying lengths so they don't clank all at once. Hang them close enough that they gently tap one another when the wind moves through, but not so close that they tangle. You want a soft, irregular music like whispers between old friends. Once your wind chime is complete, find a special spot for it in the garden, perhaps near a doorway, above a bench, or from the limb of a favorite tree. Every breeze becomes a tiny concert, each note a reminder of how something ordinary can be transformed. And here's a tender thought: each time you hear those gentle chimes, you're hearing echoes of your own care and creativity. That spoon may have stirred soup on cold evenings. That fork may have served cake at birthdays. And now, in their second life, they continue to offer something not nourishment for the body, but a soft, soulful gift for the spirit. You can make your wind chime even more personal. Add a bell from an old collar. String glass beads or buttons between the utensils. Tie a ribbon from a loved one's old blouse. Each piece becomes a note in a symphony of memory, a soundscape that's completely yours. This is one of those projects that doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Just your hands, your heart, and the willingness to let old things speak again. Because sometimes beauty isn't silent. Sometimes it chimes softly in the wind, reminding you that nothing is wasted, and every life, every item still has a song to sing. Do you have an old dresser that's missing a leg, or a nightstand that's far too wobbly to fix? Before you drag it to the curb or haul it to the dump, take a peek inside. Those old drawers, the ones that once held socks, linens, or letters from years ago, are about to begin a whole new life outdoors. Today, we're transforming them into a drawer planter wall, a vertical garden full of blooms, herbs, and rustic charm. Start by pulling out the drawers completely. Don't worry if they're chipped or if the handles are mismatched. In fact, those signs of age are what make this project feel cozy and lived in. Give each drawer a light clean, then inspect for sturdiness. If the bottoms are thin or sagging, reinforce them with a scrap of wood or cardboard to hold soil more securely. Next, you can paint the drawers with outdoor safe paint if you'd like soft whites, robin's egg blue, moss green, or even a patchwork of colors for a playful look. Or leave them as they are, allowing the original wood and wear to speak for themselves. A light coat of weather sealant can help protect them from the elements while keeping their vintage look. Now let's build the wall. You can mount the drawers directly onto a fence or an outdoor wall. Arrange them in a staggered pattern like little cubbies using screws or strong brackets. If you don't want to drill into a wall, you can also stack them vertically on the ground, securing each with screws or L brackets for stability. Each drawer becomes a planter box ready to be filled with potting soil and whatever your heart desires. Try placing herbs like sage, rosemary, and oregano in one. Fill another with bright spilling blooms, nasturtiums, alyssum, or geraniums. Tuck moss or trailing ivy in the corners to soften the edges. You can even make this a themed display, an edible wall full of herbs and salad greens, or a butterfly buffet with nectar-rich flowers like zinnias and coneflowers. To finish the look, consider adding small labels to each drawer. Use chalkboard paint, wooden tags, or even a hand-painted sign that says Bloom Box or Grandma's Garden. A string of solar-powered fairy lights woven between the drawers adds a magical touch at night. What makes this project so special is how it turns the idea of furniture on its head. Instead of storing things indoors, these drawers now hold life, spilling with green, glowing in sunlight and inviting birds, bees, and butterflies to come take a look. And just like many of us, these drawers once served a practical purpose. They held the weight of everyday life. Now they've been given a new one, softer, slower, but no less meaningful. A life of beauty, a life of offering. So the next time you see an old dresser on the roadside or wonder what to do with a wobbly piece of furniture, look closer. There's a wall of life waiting to grow from its heart, and it only takes your hands and a little love to make it bloom. So here we are, dear friend, back on the porch as the light begins to soften and the crickets prepare their nightly tune. Maybe you're holding a cup of tea or simply sitting with hands resting in your lap, listening to the quiet hum of your own thoughts. We've wandered together through so many ideas today, from teacups and tire planters to chimes made of silverware and boots filled with flowers. And if there's one thread that runs through them all, it's this: you don't need money, youth, or perfection to create something beautiful. You need only a gentle willingness to look again at things once forgotten, at corners once overlooked, and yes, even at yourself. Because upcycling isn't just about saving the planet or saving money, though those are blessings in their own right. It's about believing that everything, even what seems broken, used up, or ordinary, still holds value, still has a purpose, still has the potential to shine. Just like us. Your hands may move slower now, but they still create. Your back may ache a bit more than it used to, but your heart, it's still full of vision, full of kindness, full of stories waiting to bloom into something lovely. Each little project you take on, each painted can, each planted drawer becomes part of a larger story. A garden that doesn't just grow flowers, but grows hope, grows joy, grows reminders that the best things in life aren't bought new. They're made meaningful with time, with care, and with love. So take a look around your home, your yard, even your recycling bin. What might be waiting for a second chance? What might you turn into a gift for the garden, or a gift for yourself? We'd love to hear which idea made you smile today. Leave a comment below, maybe even share a photo of what you've created. And if this gentle time together brought you peace or inspiration, consider subscribing to our channel. There's always more beauty to discover, more stories to tell, more ways to bring joy into your golden years, one quiet moment at a time. Until then, may your hands stay busy, your heart stay open, and your garden bloom with the kind of beauty that only comes with time. Happy gardening, dear friend. Until next time.